I'm sure we're all familiar with Victor Wembanyama's offensive game. The highlights can be breathtaking at times, as his sheer height and length and skill level can be simply overwhelming. There is no question why he's an all-star this year, as his impact on the court can't be measured in simple box score numbers. But there's something else going on that no one has been paying attention to, and I'm here to break it down so we can more fully enjoy the early stages of what is surely a Hall of Fame and potential GOAT career, otherwise known as the Wemby. Never have we seen someone who can combine freakish height, out-of-the-box dexterity, crazy athleticism and body control, great court vision and passing ability, which will be a major factor in propelling him to GOAT status at some point, and the cherry on top is his shooting skill from distance. And I'm not talking about spotting up right at the three-point line, I mean deep threes, the kind that make you say, this is just unfair. At his height, you won't find two big men in the NBA that can even try to challenge his three-point shot with any effect, but he's doing off-the-dribble step-back moves at 7'3" tall. Mon Dieu, there's nothing you can do. If that was the bulk of his contributions on the court, he'd be well on his way to top 10 player of all time status. But that's literally only half the equation. He's been the single most dominating force on the defensive end to the point where I can't believe anyone in the league is still willing to challenge him near the rim. I mean, why is anyone willing to shoot the ball when he's anywhere near the basket? His on-court defensive rating would rank 4th in the NBA overall, and it's when he goes to the bench that the Spurs defense becomes a turnstile, something they need to solve in order to take the next step up the ladder in the Western Conference. But blocking shots is a common occurrence in the NBA, so how is Wemby separating himself in this category? For one, he's doing it on sheer volume. There have been 19 players that have ever averaged at least 3.5 blocks a game in the NBA since they started counting them. And Wemby was the youngest ever to do it last year, and is almost guaranteed to do it again this year. But swatting shots out of the air or stripping players on the way up isn't the only thing that's happening. Plenty of guys can rotate over from the weak side, sky into the air, and swat the ball out of bounds with a scowl on their face or a finger wag for the cameras. The really valuable blocks are the kind that your team can recover and trigger into a fast break. These require a little more awareness and fingertip control and anticipation to not only read the offensive player's move, but to subtly deflect the ball so either you can recover it or a teammate can easily track it down. These are the plays that coaches love to see, and it's time to give them a name: the Wemby. I went through all of his blocks this year to calculate the percentage of Wembys he's giving the Spurs, and it turns out over 57% of his total blocks get recovered by his team. If you're wondering how that stacks up against the other high-volume shot blockers in the league, he's just about at the top of the list. It's not shocking that Anthony Davis has this ability as well, but I was a little surprised to see Brook Lopez so far above everyone. However, he's doing it in such low volume overall that Wembanyama deserves to have this play named after him. The first thing I want you to notice is how early he gets his arms up over his head when he senses a shot around the rim is going to go up. This serves two purposes: to beat the ball to the spot with his hand so he can swat it, but also to signal to the referees that he's not going to swipe down in an overt way that so often leads to a whistle and shooting foul. While it's a lot harder to jump into the air when starting with your arms over your shoulders, Wemby knows that his standing reach is already so ridiculous that he doesn't need to get that high in order to block these shots softly to either himself or a teammate. And he's mastered the English language so well already that he's got a good retort ready whenever someone really tries to challenge him at the rim. I had the chance to go see Wembanyama in person, and it's even more awe-inspiring live to see this unicorn glide up and down the court, which is why you have to get tickets to the game using SeatGeek, the best app for finding the greatest value for sporting events, concerts, or the theater. Just check for the green dots. They let you know the price is a great value. It's the easiest app I've ever used to get tickets, and I've got the hookup. With my code BBALL10, you'll get 10% off of every purchase you make. So act now, since this offer may not last long. Hit my link. Don't worry about being called a geek. That's cool these days. and enjoy all your favorite concerts and sporting events. Save 10% with my code BBALL10 and be able to enjoy seeing Wembys in person, since they break down into a few distinct categories. Obviously, defending the pick and roll is the most important thing in the NBA, and he can essentially wreck the whole thing by himself. He's an equal opportunity blocker of both the ball handler and the roll man, as he is mobile enough to stay even with the screener to dissuade the pass back and can react quickly enough to erase the shot from the driver. Watch how he drops to lure the ball handler into the dreaded mid-range, can reach from pretty far away with those long arms before trying to recover to the roll man and then leaping from that position up and into a block of the jump shot. But he's also quick enough to show at the ball handler, and I want you to see something very interesting. Check how he turns his back on the roll man in order to accelerate and knock this pass away. No coach would ever teach this, but I suspect he's discovered something about quick movement that we can all learn from, as we get another example of why it's foolish to challenge him at the rim as he knocks it off the backboard, another smart thing we'll get into in a second. Again, watch how he shows at the ball handler to almost lure him into the pocket pass, then turns his back to accelerate and beat Miles Turner to the spot where he can retrieve the block shot and trigger another break. This is no fluke. He does it again here, and I truly think he's luring the ball handler into thinking he's got a free look with Wemby's back turned, only to casually knock it away at the rim. There's a ballet-like quality to his movement as he uses his pirouette style to enable him to track the ball handler as long as possible, but then recover to the roller and break up the lob play. Remarkable. Another method he uses more than most players is to block these shots off the backboard. There are two main benefits to doing it this way. One is that he can avoid a foul by swiping his arm in a perpendicular angle to the shooter. This way he can reach and swipe and limit the possible exposure he has to making contact with the shooter's arm. The second benefit is that he knows that the general defensive position of his teammates has them in areas where the ball will ricochet to. So it's another level of ensuring the ball gets recovered by the Spurs. He is so difficult to score on in the post that it's crazy how few defensive possessions he has down there according to Synergy. Even if you successfully get him up in the air on a fake, he's so bouncy that he can get back to that shot quick and stop it from getting to the target. By the time you get the ball back up in the air, his hands are already over his head and it's just a quick tap where he can recover it himself into a fast break. Jokic tries his best to muscle him out of the way, and Wemby has gotten stronger this year. Unless you can knock him out of bounds, it's pretty futile as Jokic can't even get him to go for the fake before shooting it into his hand. Slow step-throughs ain't gonna work either, as Zubats can't muscle him out of the way, and Wemby's reach is too great for a simple jump hook. The most impressive Wembys he has are probably when defending a perimeter player. He's great at keeping his chest square to the offensive player, and Jackson Jr. thinks he can just bump Wemby out of the way. But Wemby actually uses it to his advantage by almost hopping backward onto that left foot so he can stay upright and balanced. Those arms are already overhead, so he just needs to get about a foot off the ground to knock the shot into a loose ball recovered by Castle. Jackson Jr. tries again, and we see how good Wemby is at sliding his feet while being pushed. And he's got a good knack for not going for pump fakes, just waiting for the shot to go up and blocking it out of the air. Catching him out of position means very little since he's so good at recovering. Ayton attacks off the catch to get underneath Wemby, but the spin move pump fake doesn't do anything as he softly deflects this jump hook to Harrison Barnes. And if you're able to beat him off the dribble, you'd better find a way to cram it through the iron as quickly as possible, since his frame allows him to be the best blocker from behind that we've ever seen in the NBA. Notice how he uses offensive footwork on these, almost like he's shooting a floater off of 2 feet, since he doesn't have to get that high off the ground to make it to the block zone, and his 8-foot wingspan is an advantage I don't think anyone else has in the NBA. I've even come up with something called a Super Wemby, when his block shots lead to a fast break that he himself finishes. Not since the days of Wilt Chamberlain have we had such a dominant defensive force with the speed of Wembanyama, and I suspect he'll continue to refine the skills of batting the ball out of the air to a teammate in an advantageous position before racing down court for a thunderous slam that demoralizes the opponent. I think this could be a stat we start keeping going forward, and it's important we never forget who was responsible for it.